Well, I'm here. Here we are.
Yeah, we are here.
Here we are. Shit's still wild. World's still on fire. Obviously, I'm not as morose personally as I was last week for a few reasons. We can name off some of them. But first, something that don't hit. But this I
good.
just keep. I have a particular aspect of all this that I can't stop thinking about because, and this ain't a hot take or anything. That's part of what I'm trying to say. I feel like everybody knows and recognizes this. That's on our side, at least. But I still think it's really, really fucking wild if you sort of just take a step back and try to divorce yourself from our entire life's history with, police brutality in America and stuff, and just look at what's happening right now. And it's fucking insane that at the macro scale, the American police, their general response to credible accusations of brutality and misconduct has been to publicly and unapologetically brutalize people.
Yeah, just start beating the fuck out of motherfuckers.
And misconduct themselves on camera and everything. It's just a level of not giving a fuck, entitlement and all of that stuff that's unreal. Because I can't think of, and maybe y'all can come up with something. I can't think of an analogy to that. I don't think most people, even other super shitty groups of people, Wall Street politicians, whatever, they go through the motions of trying to act like they're not doing the shit that they're being accused of doing.
Right.
But the cops don't even give a fuck.
No,
man.
they do.
It would be like if during the height of the steroids and baseball scandal, if fucking Mark McGuire went on Jay Leno and shot a bunch of horse juice in his butt and then tear gassed a pregnant lady or whatever. Or if Bill Clinton had just played a sex tape throughout his impeachment hearings.
I was about to say, if Bill Clinton during the middle of his, that depends on what your definition of the word is if he was just getting his dick sucked that whole time.
Yeah, publicly and on camera. Yeah, and then blinded a journalist at the end of that. But it's people just we kind of just take it for granted because the whole point is that they suck. And I know they do suck, but I'm just saying it's a whole nother level of insanity to me.
I have
that they just don't fucking care.
I have conflicting feelings going through my head right now because I felt and was so morose last week myself on both the podcasts because I felt exactly what you're talking about when I saw police ignore looting, just literally ignore it, and then shoot at us and hit Andy and tear gas me. And then later I see on the news that they're still bitching about the looting that they didn't stop. So I'm also seeing that and know exactly what you mean. And it makes me feel really fucking scared and sad because it's we can't beat them. They can just beat people. I mean, they can. That's sort of the whole problem is that they have guns and a bunch of fucking power. But, and I don't know if this is going to make you feel better or worse, they are at least in the news trying to spin a lot of those things.
Right.
But that thing that happened in Buffalo, it was an old white guy. It was so it's not even Black America at this point. It's the old white America.
Right.
He tries to return their police helmet, gets close to them. They shove him down, crack his head open. He starts bleeding. One of them goes to bend down to help him. Another one prevents him from doing so. And then when they get charged, a bunch of cops in Buffalo resign, and almost every cop go down to the courthouse to show support for these guys.
But they didn't really even resign, though, is the thing.
Right.
Yeah, because I heard that and I was like, well, good, fuck them. So they're not cops anymore? That hits for everybody. Because I've seen a lot of cops doing viral posts from cops. They're people don't realize we're this close to just walking away, and we're all just sitting oh, no please don't do that. Right. But the guys in Buffalo, they only resigned from that one unit and stayed cops otherwise. So it's even worse than it sounds.
Right. Well, I was just trying to, I guess, get at this conflicting. There's a part of me that's with you entirely. It's so they're just beating people on camera with fucking batons or whatever. And then there's a part of me though that's but then they do go on the news and try to spin it. and I can't decide if their stupidity is somewhat encouraging because that's who we're up against. It's just guys, I worked in the public defense and criminal justice field for years. If there's anything I want y'all to know, it's that cops are stupid. They're so fucking dumb. It's unbelievable how fucking dumb these people are that we give guns and everyone's like, they're heroes. They're fucking stupid. Well, my cousin's a cop. Your cousin is fucking stupid. You have a stupid fucking cousin and you know it. He couldn't fucking finish college or he went to fucking community college, so he had to become a cop because it's the only way he was ever going to get a fucking pension because he's dumb as fuck. But, like, trademark conflict, do I feel better or worse about that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not excited. I know how to feel about them hitting people, and the fact that they don't care makes me sad. Is that going to lead to their demise more quickly?
Yeah.
Well, because they're.
Or is it proof that they're just going to murder us all?
Well, I think my ultimate conclusion, and I try to be optimistic and I tell myself things a lot, but yeah, my conclusion from it is the former, that it proves that it's like too foundational of a rot in the culture of police for them to like change it. Like you can't change it based on what the current system is. So the only option is to basically start over. But I think that, based on what just happened in Minneapolis, like that might actually happen, because I think enough people, even people who previously might have been like Democrats, but they're moderate Democrats or whatever, and still were, down with the police and stuff, or even recently, anecdotally speaking, some conservatives and shit, they've done this enough, and they've done it at a egregious and violent enough level and publicly enough for so long that like the tide has turned, I think, and I think we'll be able to actually get some sweeping changes like that, because there won't be as much resistance to it as there have been in the past, or would have been in the past, because everybody has seen what they're doing, and not everybody, but a huge chunk of people, much bigger than before, is like, God damn, this is fucked up.
Right.
That's what
I agree with that.
I hope so too. I feel like, though, where to even start with what I'm trying to say? I mean, obviously, first of all, remember why this all started, because yet again, a fucking black man was murdered in the streets. And on that note, and this kind of is analogous to how you and I have talked about environmentalism and stuff in the past, where I'm like losing hope. I hope I sound less beat down than I did last week. I had a few people hit me up on Twitter and just be like, you sounded so fucking bleak even for you.
I had people message me and they were like, is Drew okay? And I was like,
and I wasn't.
No. I was
like,
no,
not.
But yeah.
And
right.
America's not. I do feel like after March and Trey, and you can comment on, you went with me a couple times, how you feel hearing some of these folks speak, seeing so many young people and different types of young people, that this generation is not going to be beaten by this.
Right.
And I do feel that.
Yeah.
But how many people got to bleed?
Yeah.
And how long is it going to take?
Right.
And how many fucking photo ops is the Democratic establishment going to do while they drag their goddamn feet?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that like, I know that they're the only ones putting forth any legislation. The Republicans ain't doing shit. But I'm saying, like, how long is it going to take? When is enough going to be enough? How many kids are going to have to get, and reporters and nurses are going to have to get shot by fucking rubber bullets?
Yeah. I don't know about the second part, but the first part of it, I definitely agree with you. We've texted about this throughout the week, but and I was going to get to it today. I wanted to open with the more negative thing first, I thought, before getting into trying to be a little more positive, because I feel very different than I did last week, because when we did this last week, I hadn't been out and about yet, and I was talking about how I've always tried to be like really like an optimist in the long term, like with the long view. I think things will work out, eventually, yada yada. And that last week I was saying this is the first time that I've felt like truly afraid and worried, like, oh shit, this country might be done for. I don't know what's going to happen. Everything's really bad. But in the intervening time, I went to a couple of demonstrations, marches, rallies, protests, whatever, 2 different ones with you and Andy over the weekend and some other friends of ours. And I don't want to sit there and act like, and yeah, you know what? We got it under control and everything's fine. That's not what I'm trying to say. But it absolutely 100% made me feel infinitely better about the whole thing, because of what you said about, like, my major takeaway, I guess, was like, this is a real thing. This isn't gonna just go away, and people are not gonna just go back to being okay with this shit anymore this time. I don't think like that. That's what I took away from it. Like, it's like, I don't know. Multiple times I had the feeling like, and I mean, I've had this feeling to some degree or another for, the past 4 years at various points for various reasons, but it's like we're like really living through something right now. Like, it feels like it feels like a genuine turning point to me.
Yeah, son.
I think
it's Wochella 2020, but with bombs and shit.
Right. And I definitely recommend going out to the protests and stuff if you have them around you and actually being present at them, because I think, for me at least, it made me feel better. It made me feel much better, much more hopeful about everything, because I was like, this is a real thing. These people are not, this isn't going away. These people aren't going away. And
I want to say, I agree with that for all those reasons, but I was at a few before it calmed down, before people were indicted, before they started announcing no-knock warrants being illegal in Louisville. For referencing Breonna Taylor. And when I saw how police reacted, I can remember one example of a police officer that I saw personally, like, in my opinion, very much doing the right thing, which isn't to say every other thing I saw was them being awful, but it's like I got 5 examples of police being awful. And then one guy who showed a lot of restraint when he almost got hit by something actually pretty big and hard, and he chose not to shoot us all in the face with rubber bullets because he knew we didn't throw it, because he knew it fucking came from somewhere else. But anyway, that aside, I'm with you in the long run about the youth and the young people, but I'm so scared about what happens in the meantime. And what I don't think is that this country is going to be anywhere close to the way that it was. America and maybe it was never like this. And maybe it was only like this because we built it on slaves, on land we stole from brown people, and then we bomb other brown people and make fucking Chinese people build all our clothes for 10 cents a day or whatever. I realize that whatever America was, it was always quote unquote problematic. But I don't think America in general, as we know it, survives Donald Trump. And I think this is related to it. And I do feel like there's a chance of it being more fair and better overall. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's going to take a lot of pain and bloodshed to get there. And it's hard for me to say I'm optimistic when I feel that way, because those are real people who are going to hurt. And I mean, maybe die. And real people have died.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, shit. I mean, you're right.
No, yeah, I don't want to downplay it and just be like, don't worry, guys. We got it. We've beaten it. We've done it. It's, we've got it under control. Because, it is going to be, has been and will continue to be a process for sure. But, like, the main thing I'm trying to say is I really do feel like it's different this time, because this isn't the first time. Obviously, that's part of the whole problem. It's not the first time. But the other times it's sort of flared up, whatever, and then kind of got swept under the rug or went away again, and black people were just forced to go back to just fucking dealing with it, and everybody else carried on with their lives. And I just really don't think that it's going to play out that way again this time. And I mean that, like, for the better.
Well, just to go back on something, I know that we've discussed it off podcast, but I don't remember if we talked about it in recorded form. I think the last podcast that we did, I had talked to y'all, and I was pretty morose about the fact that I was like, God damn it. It just, the people around me where I live, I'm in rural Georgia and I'm in Trump country, and so many of these people I know, it's not even worth having the goddamn conversation, because I know how it's going to go, and you can't, budge these people one way or the other. And I wanted to say now publicly to everybody that I was wrong as fuck. I was very wrong. So that's why, again, like you said, we can't just say, oh, well, we've done it, we beat it. But the tide is absolutely shifting, because I've seen so many, like, I've been literally blown away. Like, my sister has taken some screenshots, because I don't fuck with Facebook no more, like, because of what all I just said, because it's just a fucking,
my God,
it's just cool. It's unreal. And by the way, Twitter can be too, but just the way that Twitter works makes it more bearable for some reason, because at least, I guess like some cool people, some funny people are on there at least.
And because they're dumb. It's hard to be that fucking shitty in 140 characters, whereas give them 5 paragraphs.
Actually, that's a big part of it. But either way, so I don't fuck with Facebook, but my sister sent me like screenshot after screenshot after screenshot of people who, if you put a gun to my head and was like, would this person ever, talk about against the police, or rather for black people, and admit that there's actually a problem going on and that you can't deny it anymore, I've been like, no, there's no way. And I'd have been fucking shot in the head, because it's really happened. Like it's been unbelievable. And I'm
so glad it's happening publicly.
Right. Because it'd be very easy for one of them to, be like, at home having that conversation when they went to fucking work, or like on Facebook, they wouldn't do it because they want to get fired. But yeah, it's really, really happening. And I think it's one of those situations where like a lot of it's happened because we've seen some police shoot white people and old white men. But hey, look, whatever it fucking takes, I don't give a shit. I'm not, that ain't the liberal I want to be. I want for whatever, dude.
They finally stopped saying police kill white people too, for the most part, because they like a lot of people finally were like, "Oh, that's bad."
Not like that. They don't. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when the police killed my cousin, we was all pretty happy about it for the first couple hours.
But I will say this too, in the easiest way that I've seen to do it, and I think it actually genuinely helps that it's a white man. If you're talking about getting people who are latently racist or automatically defensive about change, it's good maybe that a white man is doing it. The best clip I've seen was from John Oliver, who, by the way, has, my understanding, quite a few black writers on his staff. Could be wrong about that. But anyway, there's this defund the police thing. There's a visceral reaction from a lot of people. What the fuck? Who do we call if we get robbed or whatever? And John Oliver breaks it down, and I guess piggybacking off what you were saying, Trey, about hope, like it's not enough, though, that people are like, maybe police are bad. We actually have to change things now. And John Oliver's segment on defunding the police and what it actually means and why people are for it is super well done, as it usually is. And I hope, done in a way and by a white guy, so that a lot of white people can listen to it and at least imagine the world that is being proposed by the people who want to defund the police. And I would encourage you guys to all watch it and share it on your own walls with your people. It essentially comes down to this. Why do we call the same institution, the same people, for murder, rape, someone's having a mental health issue and they're outside naked?
Right.
I can't find my cat.
Drugs.
Addiction. Why are we calling the one group? And why does that group all receive the same type of training? And why is almost all of that training to do violence?
Right.
It makes no sense. And if you have conservatives in your life, talk to them about it as big government being way too broad and getting way too much money to not actually fucking help people. Any small C conservative should be able to understand that concept, that a government institution has gotten too powerful politically and doesn't actually do what it's supposed to do and is not good at doing the things.
The thing about that is, and it is different, I think, with the police specifically because of all the things we've already said as far as the tide kind of shifting, hopefully. But as far as that last thing you said, that all applies, in my opinion, to the Department of Defense also. And it's always annoyed the shit out of me that like small government people who hate government spending and stuff take no issue at all with the bloat of the defense budget. And I used to like have conversations with people I worked with at the DOE about it, because a lot of them had worked for the DOD before or whatever. They like transferred from the DOD and were in DOD contracting. And so I would ask them, I was like, dude, tell me straight up, for real. Like, I mean, do we really need to be spending X millions of dollars on a warehouse full of tanks that we never have used and never will use or whatever? I'd have specific examples at the time because we'd read about it in the shit we got or whatever. And almost every single time they would be like, well, yeah, no, we do because of and they give some bullshit response about how, this, how it's all necessary and whatever, yada, yada. Like they tell themselves that.
But I want to be clear. What I would say in that case as an analogy, I don't know what I would say if I were you in that specific example, and people are going like, no, but we need X, Y, Z. It's like, yeah, I'm not saying take the money and burn it.
Right.
I'm saying take the money and create various programs and organizations. Dude, let's just take sexual assault. Like, how many more stories do we have to read about a girl who's like crying? She was raped. Like, she was fucking raped. And we read that a male cop was like, so were you drunk and all that? And it's like, What if there was a sexual assault advocate and a whole group of them in major cities especially who could deal with that first before it ever got to a detective? And by the way, I said earlier, all cops are stupid. I've been saying it for fucking years, except most detectives.
Right.
We need somebody needs to investigate. We need investigators. You know what I mean? We just don't need a motherfucker with 9 guns responding to every goddamn, my neighbor came over here and threw poop on my porch. Like, especially if that neighbor's black or has mental health issues or, God forbid, both, often ends up dead.
And yes, it's the same person who responds to any circumstance, no matter what it is, many of which in no way actually require an armed police officer. And that same guy who shows up for all the different things, they all receive the same training, most of which has nothing to do with how to properly handle a, mentally handicapped person having an episode in public or at a park or something. And a lot of it's, they literally call it like warrior training and stuff. I heard a thing earlier about in Minneapolis specifically, they tried to defund just this part of the police training called the warrior program or warrior training or something. And the cops got, horrifically offended by the notion they would do that, refused to do it, and then ran a smear campaign against the councilwoman who had suggested it, publicly posting pictures and stuff of her with, it's literally just like her with another black person, and they're kind of like pointing or whatever, and they were talking about city councilwoman makes gang signs at city council meeting and shit like that. Like, literally.
What a bunch of fucking morons.
Anyway, so like they're stupid and they're so entitled. Like they cannot handle any. Previously, they still can't handle it, but now it doesn't matter anymore. But they've always been totally unable to handle any kind of like criticism or questioning of, is this all entirely necessary? And to them, it's like, well, we're the barometer of what is necessary, right. And if we say it's necessary, then it is.
But
and
they're
you all
powerful.
need to shut the fuck up and be grateful that you have us.
But they're powerful.
No, very, very powerful.
And it worries me because dismantling that is going to take a lot of work and a lot of time. And that's the other thing I hope for these kids. I sincerely feel like this. Every generation, politically, if they have to, if they get put in a situation where they got to respond to something, does it a little better than the generation before them. But every generation gets worn out eventually. And it still moves culture and society along to a certain point. But that's the other thing I'm worried about. This is a big fight. This is a big fucking fight. People cannot – there's so many people who literally can't wrap their heads around police being a corrupt, institution.
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, they're the fucking heroes, man.
Right, but so many fewer of them now than there were, I think. Fucking NASCAR. NASCAR had a whole little like segment, a Black Lives Matter segment before their recent race. They had a montage of, related to the movement and drivers talking about supporting the movement and wearing the shirts and stuff like that. Then they had a moment of silence. Then they observed a moment of silence in honor of George Floyd and victims of police brutality and all of that before the race started. And that's fucking NASCAR doing that.
Shout out Ethan SP, our buddy who did our show in New York. I have a black friend, but I'm bringing him up because he loves NASCAR, and I can't wait to tell him that.
I keep seeing on Twitter, like with NASCAR and with like Drew Brees and with, several of these other high profile people who normally didn't ever speak out, but now they're speaking out against this. Like there's like all those people on Twitter who are like, look at these companies, look at them all just bending the knee to the Democrats and bending the knee to the liberal agenda so that they don't get in trouble and blah, blah, blah. And I read that every time, and I'm just like, God damn, I'm so glad. Like, even as fucked up as things are in this country, I'm glad that major corporations and major athlete people think that it's in their best interest to come out against police brutality.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. They wouldn't. Yeah. Here's the thing: that none of them would be doing it if they felt like it would actually
help the brand. It
would hurt. Yeah, would ultimately be detrimental to their brand or their bottom line, because that's how corporations work.
And which means they think the majority is on that side. They think
that it's in their best interest to be on that side of it, which is indicative of something at the societal level. And I completely agree, and that is a good thing. I also roll my eyes at every time there's any kind of kind of crisis or movement. Every single fucking corporation has to weigh in on it and whatever. But still,
here's the way I
you're
look
100%
at it.
right.
This is the way I look at it if I'm a corporation, because it's also the way that I look at it sometimes just for us, and we're not shit. But two things are going to happen when something like this goes down. You either say something and you get, all the fucking Twitter bots hitting you with that silence brand meme or whatever and telling you, hey, look at these corporations saying something and talking blah, blah, blah. And you're going to get shit for that. Or you don't say anything, and then all the comments on your page are going to be, your silence on this issue is deafening. So if you're going to get shit either way, I err to the side of let me get shit for having said something and just looking like a corporate robot. That's at least, I would rather get that shit than for someone saying, you've got a platform and you didn't say a goddamn thing. I'd rather have the other people mad at me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, going back to that long-term encouragement, and you guys are basically saying this, but it's just like when Nike supported Cap. I looked at it and I was like, yeah, this is a hollow grab for money. But how amazing is it that it's profitable in our shitty capitalistic society that's going to make you money to do right?
Yeah, it is. Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask y'all another thing. It directly related to this, but not specifically the part of it we were just talking about. But like the blue wall of silence thing, and I know for a fact that it's not directly analogous because it's their job, whatever, they face like livelihood consequences and whatnot. I'm not making excuses for them. I'm making excuses for the analogy I'm about to make. But all three of us are like, we undeniably belong to a group of people that a whole lot of other people consider to be largely bad. Yeah.
And we lose our jobs when we are.
Right, bad, evil, race, whatever. Like, we're all part of a group that's like that, and also talk about being proud of it. We talk about how that's not all of us, because it ain't all of us. It's not the same as the cops with the bad apples thing, because I've got a million examples of people close to me that prove that it's not all of us. But the biggest point is nobody hates a goddamn backwards ass racist dipshit redneck more than I do and we do. Do you know what I mean? And we're not ever quiet about it. We don't make excuses for them. We go out of our way to call them out and say, hey, fuck this guy and everything about this guy because he's making the rest of us look bad or whatnot. And so I think that's part of why, without even really thinking about it in those terms before, I do think that's part of why I've just never had any fucking sympathy at all for that aspect of it. Do you know what I mean?
Because they don't be doing that.
Because they don't. Right. They don't do that. They'll say, oh, it's just a few bad apples, but then they don't ever do anything about the apparent bad apples and whatnot. And they always stand together. And like, I don't be doing that with the fucking Klan. We're both from Tennessee,
Right.
Like,
and I mean, for what it's worth, like, as you were alluding to earlier, like there's in comedy, there's a shit ton of dirt bags, but like, comedians self-police pretty good. I mean, I think better than they used to, because like there was a lot of stuff that for years and years and years and years was just rumor, and then like, kind of the levee breaks, and now it's just like, okay, fuck this. But like, comedians are pretty good at like, if some comedian did a racist thing or jerked off on a woman's feet, like we kind of are like, hey, don't do that. So we call out our bad apples, and then like, if people still want to go see them, we can't say shit about that. But like, fuck you, you're not on my show. So
no, if comedians acted about other comedians' indiscretions the way cops operate, then we'd be having a fucking Bill Cosby benefit special every year. Yeah. Like that's the level of bullshit that they operate at. They don't acknowledge any of it at all. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm sure there are. I don't know other industries well enough. I'm sure that definitely happens in other well, I mean, like, you know, the GOP is an obvious example, the party at large. But
I mean, like, most politicians, to be fair, are a little bit like that.
Yeah, I know, but then I know, like, I mean, they are. Most politicians are for sure. But then, like, you know, Al Franken, man, his shit got ended.
Yeah, but Republicans will cut somebody loose if they think it's going to be bad for the brand. They just have a different brand.
Well, what makes it bad for the? Yeah, right. Okay, so like Mitt Romney marching in a Black Lives Matter march, like he's done.
Yeah, he's done.
Right.
That actually wasn't. I mean, it was a march. See, this is one of those things. This goes back to what we were talking about. He's not a corporation, so let me ask you guys this: there was a Black Lives Matter protest in his city where he was at that day across town. He did not go to that. He went to this Christian march that was admittedly saying, hey, man, some things are messed up. I'm so glad that a group of Christians that Mitt Romney's down with are marching. But I am just pointing out to you that Mitt Romney purposefully didn't go to an actual Black Lives Matter organized march and went to a different one.
Yeah,
I didn't. Had their march at the same exact goddamn time as a Black Lives Matter march, which would have been easy for them to know was going on.
That's hilarious.
Join.
I didn't know that. It's just obviously that the pictures and stuff are flying around all over the place. It's him, you know, he tweeted Black Lives Matter with him pictures at a big thing. I didn't realize that was the circumstances.
Well, here's the deal. It is very Raven, but like, you know, it kind of don't matter in the sense of like, I didn't know that either, which means that, trust me, most Republicans that are seeing that don't know that either. They're just seeing him there do that, and they're going to hate it regardless. So, I mean, you know, point still made. It surprised me. But, you know, again, as we were saying, Mitt Romney absolutely thinks that that's going to benefit him. Period. That's all it is. Like, politically, or his fucking Bain Holdings company somehow. I don't fucking know. Like, he thinks there's something in it for him.
Right. And I want to say something about that, actually. You just made me think of something. There is a part of me as a human in my humanity that wants to believe that Mitt Romney actually gives a shit. And then I remember he's a fucking lizard person. They're all
Mormons are nice. People. Mormons are nice.
Sure, but Mitt Romney is a lizard person.
I know he's a lizard Mormon.
I mean? And right. But I'm just saying, I've had some conversations both with trolls and with friends of mine, et cetera, about this idea of performative wokeness. I want to be very clear right now. 99 times out of 100, if you see somebody saying this person or this thing is just doing it to get clout, if it's not a corporation or a politician, 99 times out of 100, you're full of shit. Because if you have any sort of platform, you're going to get way much more grief. You're going to, you know, if you have, unless you're already, you know, Trey Crowder, for example, the liberal redneck, and known, like, I put my stake in this fucking ground from day one, you're losing followers just as much as you're gaining. A, and B, for better or worse, we live in an online world. We need images, and we need some of the dumb, weak people on our team, and dumb, weak people are moved by images. And like, it sucks, but like, I understand that when you see these videos of these fucking influencers, like coming up with their photographer, hopping in line with the protest, taking a picture, and then hopping out of line and going back to their fucking mansion, that you want to murder that person. And eventually we should. We'll get to them after the cops. But like, I've hid so many things I've done in my life since we've become more public that are genuinely good things that I'm proud of, because I'm so afraid it's going to look gross or icky.
Yeah.
Volunteering, we're talking about specifically. And I'm now realizing that, like, when you get a platform, you actually do inspire people or affect them in some ways. And I'm saying all that to say, if you're out there and you're listening and you're like, I went to the march, fucking post a picture, especially if you're from a tiny southern town. Show that you are with them. And people can go, well, that's performative, or it's icky, or you're trying to get clout. That exists. That's a real thing. But what we're trying to do now is normalize questioning the police and being on board with Black Lives Matter. That's what we're trying to do.
I think what that is, people people say, you know, don't post a picture if you're going to do something. If you're going to do an act of charity, you do it anonymously, blah, 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 blah. I've heard that a lot in my life from, like, you know, my dad does things like that. My dad gives to charities and he does other things and he doesn't tell anybody about it. He's like, I think that's the way to be. And for years I grew up thinking like, oh, he's right, because you shouldn't do it for your own personal gain. And there is something to say there, but there's also part of me that like kind of genuinely believes that whole attitude was started by the fucking top tier lizards to keep us from talking about the good that we've done with each other, to inspire other people to do good, because they don't want us to do good. It's kind of like how CEOs years and years and years ago started floating around the idea that it's rude to talk about your salary. And the literal only reason that they don't want you to talk about your salary is that you and somebody else might find out that, oh shit, you're making more than me and I've been here longer than you. They don't want you talking about that, because then you're going to go in and ask for a 10% raise and go on fucking strike. So there's part of me that definitely feels that whole like, look at this motherfucker chasing clout, or like, oh, you're virtue signaling. All that is trying to get the timeline to be completely silent. That way everyone thinks nothing's fucking going on and no change is being made. That's how I feel personally. So yeah.
And also, I'm glad you said virtue signaling. The most succinct way I can try to say it is, if you're signaling virtues, but you're living those virtues, that's a double hit for me, because you're living it and encouraging other people to do it. That photo I shared of myself at the rally with the sign Hillbillies for Black Lives Matter has been shared more, has led me to meet new people. I read this article on Medium called Rednecks for Black Lives Matter that I never would have gotten sent to me had I not posted that picture. Like, these things have positive qualities to them. I know there's a gross aspect of trying to like get credit off of the backs of some tragedy, and that's real. That you should think about it. But at the end of the day, your goal is to be visible and vocal.
Yeah, the virtue signaling shit pisses me off. Not people who virtue signal. It's people who call, like, look at these fucking virtue signalers. Like, hey man, quit signaling your virtue signal, blah blah blah. And then you'll go to that person's page and like 2 posts down, they were talking about how if you don't stand for the flag, blah blah blah. It's like, motherfucker, that's your virtue. And you calling, and
all social media is.
Yeah, and you calling me out, you taking time to retweet my post with a comment that says, look at this dude virtue signaling. This isn't how you're literally signaling your virtues right now by doing this to me. So shut the fuck up.
Right.
Virtue signaling is just sharing a goddamn opinion, which is the thing that you think everybody should. I don't know, man.
It's also not the time to talk about it. George Floyd died in the street after being choked for 9 fucking minutes, and the goal with this particular picture is to spread awareness about that and let people know what side you're on. Whereas, yeah, you have a good point about a hypocrite. We'll get to that in fucking August, bro.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's stupid. People are dumb and don't.
Yeah, I mean, me and Drew talked about this the other day. I mean, I had already taken the picture and posted the picture before we even had this conversation. So, I mean, I'd already made the decision, but we were talking about this whole thing in the car, and I was saying like that I get it. I get not the virtue signaling thing. I'm talking about the like people feeling weird about stuff like that, because I feel weird about it too. I was always going to share a picture because I thought that it was more important, well, all the reasons Drew said, to like make it clear where you stand, and also to show support for a very important thing. And, you know, I've got an actual platform that makes it more important to do stuff like that. You know, I really believe all of that. So that's why I did it, but I still couldn't help but feeling a little weird about it. For me, it's because of, the thing is, it's, you know what it is? It's some bad apples. I just can't help but think about all the influencers Drew's talking about. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like all the things we see going viral with them with their bullshit. And so I'm just like, in my head, I'm sitting there, even while we're taking a picture, in my head, I'm like, God, they think that I'm that and that.
But think about that word, influencer.
Yeah.
They're not a politician. When you see Nancy Pelosi fucking kneeling in a fucking Conte cloth, I'm sure I said it wrong, or whatever she did, you should be livid unless she's coming with some reform this week. And you know what I'm saying? And apparently she has introduced the reform bill. I haven't read over it. I didn't bring her up to make anybody mad. I know we got some Pelosi stands out there. They just love how she claps instead of actually standing up to Donald Trump. But I just could not do it, could I? But my point is, influencer. Like, our culture is vapid and it's hollow and it might be eroding from the inside. But at the moment, some reason, these fucking people do influence kids.
Yeah.
So take your picture. You were already a soulless fucking succubant on our society. At the very least, I hope my 12-year-old nephew sees it and thinks, well, fuck, if Jake Paul's doing it, maybe it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the thing with that, and I know you know this, but the thing with that is it's like the problem is not them taking the picture. The problem is them taking the picture and then getting in the Mercedes and driving away. Like they don't like. Yes. The problem is that they don't actually give a fuck, but just like the corporations do, though, and we already talked about that. The corporations don't actually give a fuck either. It still is a good sign that they feel that it's conducive to them and their brand or whatever to do that. That still ultimately is a good thing. But I'm just saying that I understand this because, like, whenever I see one of those videos specifically, I also am sitting there like, God, this motherfucker, you know,
it's hard not
to
hit
for me, obviously.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
You should have already hated influencers, and I know
I
did.
I do.
I know that. That's what I'm saying. Is like we hate influencers. I'm just sitting back going, well, that's what they do, and I'm glad that this is what is cool right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
And it don't mean shit about you or us or our movement. It never has. Anytime somebody on the other side says anything about any political issue and they point out a person's hypocrisy, that doesn't change the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Drew.
What?
Do you want to give a little intro into this bonus segment that's about to start up here in a minute, and then we'll get out of here?
John Hammontree is a journalist and podcaster at AL.com in Alabama, and he started the podcast called Reckon, and Reckon is
We're the guest this week. Go listen to it right now after this.
On the Reckon podcast. The WellRED boys are the guest this week. It was something we had planned before all this popped off, but there we were, and we recorded it before I ever marched or Trey ever marched, just for the record, folks. But anyway, I wanted to keep him on after we did his podcast and talk to him about something I've been thinking a little bit about ever since, frankly, we talked with Sarah Smarsh. If you guys, WellRED fans, remember we discussed some things with Sarah Smarsh. Sarah Smarsh is a writer and also a journalist who moved back to Kansas even though she's Ivy League educated and had all these opportunities to write for New York Times or whoever it was, because she was sick of parachute journalism. I wanted to speak with John about something that I've been worried about, which is sort of the death of the local newspaper and even the death of statewide newspapers and news outlets in some cases. I have a lot of opinions about why. You can hear some of them in this conversation I have with John. He confirmed some of my opinions and validated them, and he also pointed out why I was wrong on some of them. I want to say, though, I hadn't really thought it out before I started asking him, and it became pretty clear to me that, and then John openly says it on the interview, you'll hear it in a moment, that he had to be a little careful because he is a person who works for a smaller news outlet that is owned by a major corporation. And that is an interesting relationship that he's trying to navigate there. And so I cannot put any words in his mouth one way or the other. I can go ahead and tell you guys that I purposefully didn't bring up unions or anything like that or breaking up huge corporations with John very much because I didn't want to put him in a situation that was uncomfortable. But I wanted everyone who's about to listen to this to know that, yeah, I'm aware that huge corporations are evil and unions would be the best way to go. That being said, it's a good conversation. I hope everyone is worried about local journalism, because without local journalism at the state and county and city level, all the things you talk about and think about with Donald Trump's White House and corruption and all that, it's just going to go on unchecked in smaller versions wherever you live. And so that's why we need newspapers. And John is a person who is living that, fighting against it, and doing fucking great journalism. And unfortunately, it's one of those situations, guys, where there's a way things should be, which is that every small town and every community and every small city should have its own press that does right. But that's not the case. In order to even make that happen, you got to be really, really, really good. And John Hammontree is really, really, really good. Amen. And so are his colleagues there at AI.com.
AL, right? You said,
yeah, sorry. AL, my bad.
Yeah. Yeah, they're head to toe legit, man. They've been hitting for a while, you know. I've taken note of it because, you know, it's Alabama. So
Right. Yeah.
Oh, one more thing. This is a plug, but it's, I think, for a good reason. On Into the Biscuit this week, all I'm going to put up, Andy didn't tell me she had done this, but until recently, she recorded about half of that rally we were at, Trey.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, she didn't get your friend. I think her phone just cut off without her realizing it. So I'm just putting up the speeches. I mean, we can do that here.
She recorded the video?
No, she just did an audio.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say,
so
how the hell did she do that?
Right, so you can hear these women, these black women doing the work, black women doing the work. You can hear them speak from their heart about what needs to happen and what it's like to be them in America. And it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is. All right, well, y'all check it out and enjoy this conversation with John Hammontree. We'll see y'all next time. We'll be all right. Skew.